So we're now going to record the meeting. So the meeting is now recording, so I will continue to take the sediment of the Community and Enterprise Resources Committee on Tuesday the 14th of March 2023. I can see that we have present Councillor Anderson and Councillor Barker. Also present are Councillors Brogan and Brown. Councillor Carmichael? No. I have apologies from Councillor Chalmers, but I can see that we have Councillor Shearer acting as a substitute. Also present today are Councillors Convery, Corbett, Cowan. Councillor Cowie? I can see that you are present remotely, Councillor Cowie. Also present today are Councillors Devlin and Dewar. Councillor Fagan? No. Councillor Ferguson Miller? I can see that you are present remotely. Also present today are Councillors Gowland and Horn. Councillor Johnson Dempsey? No. Also present today are Councillors Lennon, Lockhart, MacDonald, McAllen, McCreary, McLachlan, Nugent. Councillor Toner? No. And also present is Councillor Watson. We have a number of officers in attendance today, and with that I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 1, declaration of interest. Any declarations of interests? Nope. Thank you very much. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting on pages 5 to 12. Can I move the minute?
I'll second it.
Any matters arising? Councillor Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. On the minutes, item 11, comfort scheme, the pilot at Lanark, it was agreed that there would be discussions with the Lanark bid. I'd like to know, have those discussions taken place and what has been the outcome?
Sorry, Kevin. Yes, Kevin.
To discuss the paper and the outcome of the scheme, and they were going to raise it with their board to see whether it was something that they would wish to continue as part of the Business Improvement District.
David, are you okay with that? Thank you.
So no action has taken place, is that correct?
I think that's quite the opposite of what was being said.
Well, what I heard was there was discussions with them and they were going to take it to the board, so no action has been taken at this point.
I think what we're being told... Sorry, Kevin, do you want to... Or not, as the case may be.
Oh, that's us now. No, we met with the Chief Executive of the bid in January, so it's now up to the actual board of the bid whether they wish to continue with the scheme. We've passed on all the information that we had in terms of how we run the pilot, the paper that we took to committee, and it's now up to the board of the bid whether they wish to continue with that or not.
Yes, I think that very much reflects the discussion at the last committee meeting. I think that's probably where we should leave it, unless there's anything else to be raised on that. Councillor Lockhart.
To my knowledge, it has not yet been discussed at the bid board.
No, it's all right. Sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't quite catch that.
Can you hear me now? To my knowledge, it has not yet been discussed at the bid board.
Right. I think all we can presumably say, that's a matter for the board, really, to come back to the council, isn't it?
Well, I would imagine it is, yes.
Yes, I think so. I think we'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
Very disappointed, Chair. That's all I can say.
Okay, well, it's a matter for the board to come back to the council from what I'm hearing. Happy to obviously do what we can to facilitate that if need be, but that's where it stands just now. Can we, with that, approve the minute? Thank you very much. Can we move on to item 3, which is the revenue budget, community and enterprise resources, the monitoring period 2022-23, pages 13 to 22. And that's, I think, for Louise Harvey, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the 4th report presented to committee for the financial year 22-23, and it sets out the information on the revenue budget position covering the period 1st of April through to the 27th of January 23, and this reflects period 11 of our financial year. Paragraph 5 on page 14 outlines the financial implications for the resource. The probable outturn exercise has now been completed across the council, and for community and enterprise resources we are reporting a minor underspend position for the 31st of March outturn, and this is after the approved transfers to reserves of 1.270 million. These reserves transfers were approved at the Executive Committee on the 1st of February and are outlined at the bottom of each of the service pages where appropriate, and they cover in the main the waste income supporting contract renewals, allotment commitments and annual crematorium and fleet sink fund contributions. The resource is projecting a minor overspend at year-end of £7,000, and this is due to underspends in employee costs across all services, income from the waste streams, and an over-recovery of planning and building standards income offset by costs within roads, transportation and the fleet service in relation to transportation costs and charging for electric vehicles, and this was prior to the tariffs being introduced. Loss of income from school meals, and costs of PPP, bin replacement and increased ICT costs within our supplies and services across all service areas. In relation to the current position at the 27th of January 23, the resource position is a minor overspend of £15,000, again after the approved transfers to reserves. And Appendix A outlines the position, and the overspend in the main reflects further under-recovery on school meals income. And detailed variance explanations by each service area are included in Appendices B to F. We have our standard budget variants, and these are proposed as set out at the bottom of the appendices B to F again, and they reflect updates to community and enterprise budgets from the last reported period of the 4th of November through to the 27th of January, and they cover the following main areas. Transfers for funded items, including pay award rates, utilities and domestic tonnage. Budget realignment to reflect how we deliver our services across all the individual services in community and enterprise. Transfers to and from reserves for expenditure commitment, including the winter maintenance fund, and the creation of budget to reflect external income received. So if I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the forecast to the 31st of March of an underspend of £7,000 after the approved transfers to reserves as detailed in Appendix A of the report be noted, and that the overspend of £15,000 on the community and enterprise resource budget as at period 11 of the financial year, 27th of January, again as detailed in Appendix A of the report be noted, and also that the proposed budget variants be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Louise. Any questions on that report? I don't think I'm seeing any questions. Thank you very much. Can I therefore move the report? Second it. Thank you very much. Committee has agreed to that report. Moving on to item 4, which is the similar report for the capital budget monitoring 2022-23, pages 23 to 26. Can I invite in this instance Lorraine O'Hagan to speak to the report, please? Lorraine.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, Committee. Agenda item 3 there on page 23 is the standard capital budget monitoring report. And again, it takes us to the 27th of January, which is our accounting period 11. Section 3 of the report provides a background to the programme and notes that since the last meeting we have adjustments to the programme totalling a net increase of £174,000, and those are detailed in Appendix A on page 26 of your papers, and that results in a revised budget for the year of £48.444 million. Section 5 provides details then on the update for the current year so far, and a breakdown in Appendix A. And Section 5.1 notes that the resources total capital programme is the 48.444. In terms of the spend anticipated for the current year, the working projections show a spend of approximately 43.7 million. So that's an underspend of 4.744 million on the overall budget. Now that's mainly due to the timing of spend on a number of projects, resulting in the budget being required into the next financial year rather than the current year. And the details of the projects responsible for that variance are listed in section 5.3. And as I say, funding for those projects will carry forward into the new financial year. In terms of the spend to the end of period 11, that's detailed in section 5.4, and it explains that the anticipated spend to the end of January was 23.073, and we actually spent 22.898, and that represents a variance of £175,000 behind profile, and mainly reflects the profile of spend and the timing of spend on two projects, the New Jackton Primary School project and Green Hills Road project, both of which are included within the community growth area, or the Glasgow City Region City Deal programme, and those are offset by spend in relation to Clyde Gateway being incurred earlier than anticipated, so a slight overspend in terms of the profile there. So if I can refer committee back to the recommendations then in section 2 of your paper, and ask that the Community and Enterprise Resources budget of 48.444 million, spend to the 27th of January of 22.898 million, and the outturn for the financial year of 43.7 million be noted. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any questions on that report? I think hostage to fortune seems fairly straightforward this month. Sorry, Kenny McCreary.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if this is the time to bring this up or maybe in the final section, but I've been asked to ask about bridges. Primarily, these are in the Clydesdale area. I think there was a couple which were either falling down or needing some work done to them. And I just wondered if somebody could provide me with an update. As I say, I'm happy to wait to the end. I think item 9 maybe touch on this, but if I can get it now, it'd be appreciated. Various bridges in Clydesdale area.
Okay, David.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor McCreary. You'll be aware that work is progressing on terms of the Clyde Bridge, which we've got as part of our capital programme and the forthcoming year, and work is on site with that at the moment in terms of preparation work and groundworks. In terms of other bridges within the Clydesdale area and Thames bridges in general, our Roads Department are doing regular cyclical inspections of the bridges and taking any action that's required. Often that can include potential for closing bridges and some emergency works. We have done work on the Avon Bridge, which was completed last month, and on other bridges as a result of weather deterioration, and works have completed in those bridges. Councillor, if you were with the committee meeting, if there are any specific bridges that you're looking for information on, then I can make sure that officers are able to provide that and provide an update to that. But in terms of the bridges, again, we regularly inspect them and take remedial action where we can.
Kenny, are you happy with that?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, David. Obviously, I don't have these bridges in my ward, so I'm not really up to speed with what's required. But David's given a good response there. And what I'll do is the people who ask me about it, I'll ask them to contact you direct, David, if you're quite happy with that. So thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I think it's fair to say there's a lot of bridges across the South Lanarkshire area, many of which I think have got some issues, at least in terms of appearance, but the onus, as has been said, is on the safety element of the thing. That's got to be predominant, hasn't it? Can we therefore... Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Ralph Barker.
Thank you, Chair. We did very well with the Clyde Bridge, given all the circumstances, to get that done and get the capital money for it. I mean, I think it was a good job. Any other time, it would have been done a lot quicker. But given all the problems of COVID, we did well to get the well. It's not rebuilt yet, but it's being rebuilt. Yes, we do have a lot of bridges that were never designed for the traffic and are also old, and I do hope we can look forward so that we can plan ahead for capital for the next bridges, which will either get a very difficult weight limit put on them or actually be taken out of use altogether. But I do have to thank everybody for getting the Clyde Bridge, well, under construction, given the circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I think that's very much noted and welcome. Councillor Shearer, David Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome the interest from my urban colleagues of concern on the bridges in Clydesdale. It's very heartening to see that our concerns are taken on board. And I would like to further ask that, like Ralph Barker, that there's an ongoing maintenance programme included in the possible need to replace some of these bridges, because it's not only the Clyde Bridge, which we now have replaced, but there are many, many bridges in Clydesdale which are of the Victorian era, and I hate to say it, the Victorian era ones are lasting much better than the ones that were built in the 1960s. However, they all have to be maintained and they all are vital to communities across Clydesdale. But thank you again for the interest in the committee.
David, did you want to come in on that? He said he did.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, councillors, in terms for the comments about the bridges. Just to point out that the part of our roads and transportation and fleet department, we undertake a roads asset management plan on a regular basis, and it was reported to this committee, I think the committee before last, and we'll continue to do that, in which case we assess all of the roads infrastructure, including bridges, and advise on what is required in the future. Thank you.
It comes back to the point, really, of safety being at the heart of this one, doesn't it? Thank you very much for the comments. Anyway, can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Committee agreed to the report. Moving on to item 5, which is the Community Enterprise Resources Workforce Monitoring Report from October to December 2022, pages 27 to 34. Elaine Maxwell to speak to the report, please. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, this is the Standard Workforce Monitoring Report, which is prepared by personnel, and that will provide you, committee, with an update on the employment information for the period of October to December 2022 for the resource. Looking at section 4.1 specifically outlines the attendance statistics for the resource, and committee will see that for December 22, the resource absence figures was sitting at 8%, which did represent an increase of 0.3% when we compared ourselves to November of 22. And again, when we compare ourselves to the previous year, that figure had actually increased by 0.6%. You will also note that the resource absence figure at December was 1% higher than the council-wide figure. As we always do, we look at project an annual average for the resource, and at that point in time, the projection was sitting that the resource absence figure would be 7.4% for the year, which is against a council-wide average of 6%. In terms of just a bit of reassurance for committee, what we can see is our absence figures have decreased and gone down at the start of this year, so in January. And that's as a result, as you know, that our managers, along with personnel, continue to work very hard in ensuring that we provide the appropriate supports and mechanisms in place for our employees to allow them to return to work. As we have been doing for quite some time, we continue to report on what our absence levels were at the time of the report being written and how much of that was relating to COVID absences. And you'll see at the time of the report being produced, the Council's absence was sitting at 5.81%, with 0.3% related to COVID absences. Moving on to section 4.2, you will see that there were 337 occupational health referrals made during that period, and that was shown just a slight increase of 8 when compared to the same period of last year. Section 4.3 outlines the accidents and incidents statistics. And again, you'll note that it's recorded that there were 49 accidents and incidents recorded within the resource for that period. And that does represent an increase of 17 when compared to the same period of the previous year. And I think this is similar to what was noted at our previous committee when we looked at the consistency of our figures that were reported pre-pandemic. We can see that this number is fairly consistent. So although it's shown quite an increase, it's consistent to our figures around 2018-19. With that similar vein, looking on then at section 4.4, which details employee relations activity, you'll see that there were 32 disciplinary hearings held across the resource, with 3 grievance hearings and 1 appeal hearing heard at the appeals panel during the period. Again, similar to the accidents and incidents, although this is reporting what would seem quite a significant increase from the same time last year. Again, looking at and reflecting on what we reported in 2018, those numbers are fairly consistent. Moving on to section 4.5, that details our leavers, which is obviously outlined in Appendix 2, and you'll see that there were 46 leavers during the period eligible for an exit interview, with 9 being conducted. And again, you know, I know it's always a point of interest for committee, but participation in exit interviews are voluntary, and we do try and encourage that where possible. Section 4.7 outlines those numbers of employees that have left the resource and the numbers that where managers have indicated that they are being replaced. So you'll see of the 145 employees that have left, managers have indicated that 120 are being replaced and 25 that are not, that were due to the end of a fixed term contract. Section 5 outlines the staffing watch information for the resource, which was recorded as at December 22, and as always we do a comparison from the previous staffing watch for at this time would have been September. It is showing a decrease of 74 employees within the resource, but committee will know that this will be predominantly related to the end of our seasonal appointments, which is reflected at the same time each year. And with that, I would refer committee back to section 2 of the report and ask to approve the recommendations to note the employment information for the resource for the period of October to December 2022. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Elaine. I think we're very much in the scene, aren't we, of going back to pre-COVID figures. So the comparisons with last year are perhaps a little bit misleading in some respects. Any questions on that report? Nobody coming in on that one. Can I move the report? Thank you very much. Committee agree on the report. Moving on to items for decision. Item 6, the revocation of Lanark Air Quality Management Area, South Lanarkshire, pages 35 to 40. Can I ask Fraser Carlin to speak to that report, please? Oh, it's Craig Brown, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the committee on the improvements in air quality within the Lanark town, and also for the proposal to revoke the air quality management area in Lanark. Section 3 of the report provides a background, and the committee will be aware that we've had exceedances of air quality standards, which resulted in 3 air quality management areas being declared, one in East Kilbride, one in Willigland, and this one in Lanark. The air quality management area for Lanark encompasses the whole town, and it was declared in 2016 due to the likely breaches of nitrogen dioxide. Environmental Services has supported traffic management and air quality projects. Some specific Lanark initiatives included projects which supported uptake of active and sustainable travel choices, improvements in traffic flow to ease congestion, which were carried out in conjunction with our colleagues in Roads and Transportation. We've carried out electrical vehicle charging introduction, engine idling campaigns and vehicle emission testing events. These are supported with council-wide initiatives such as EcoStars project and projects to encourage the uptake of cycling. Collectively, the above interventions have resulted in improved traffic flow and pollutant reduction in the Lanark area. Section 4 of the report details the current position, and we're able to see that nitrogen dioxide concentrations have declined in recent years. A detailed assessment demonstrated air quality has improved, and air quality objectives currently are not exceeded and are unlikely to be exceeded in the future. A copy of the executive summary is included in the report at Appendix 1. The detailed assessment reviewed pollutant measures over the previous 10 years and concluded that it's unlikely that the NO2 will be exceeded in the future. And we also looked at the possibility of having to redeclare for particulate matter, and the assessment confirmed that it's unlikely that the PM 2.5 levels will be exceeded in the future. The annual progress report and air quality detailed assessment were submitted to Scottish Government and to SEPA. Both reports concluded that the Lanark Air Quality Management Area should be revoked, and Scottish Government and SEPA agreed with both reports. If the committee is so minded to revoke the Air Quality Management Area, the next steps would be for the Council to carry out a consultation, which would include the local businesses, members of the public and other interested parties. Following completion of the consultation, we will look to draw up the revocation order and submit it to Scottish Government for information. We would also look to review our air quality strategy to ensure that air quality maintains a high profile locally. Environmental Services plans to continue to monitor air quality within the area at our monitoring stations for the year following any revocation to demonstrate that the decision to revoke was justified. I would take members back to Section 2 of the report and recommend that the air quality management area in Lanark is revoked. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much indeed, Craig. I think it's very much a report, isn't it, of showing progress made on really these important air quality monitoring arrangements here, and showing the success, if you like, of the air quality management area in Lanark. Have we got any questions on this? Councillor Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the progress that's been made in Lanark to improve the air quality. I have a couple of questions to ask. Was it monitored only in specific areas, or was it monitored across the town? Because I'm thinking if it was monitored in somewhere like the Wellgate, where the traffic is very slow moving and the buildings are very close together, creating a canyon effect, it would not surprise me if the air quality there was very poor. But elsewhere in the town might be better. So was it averaged out across the town? That's one question. And the other question, I welcome the fact that the air quality will be monitored at least for the next year. If there were signs of slipping back to poorer quality, what steps would the department be taking? Thank you, Chair.
We've got the formal strategy, of course, on that one. Craig, can you give a bit more detail on those?
Certainly, Chair. In relation to the first point, in the monitoring areas, there were various monitoring stations across Lanark. Those readings are then averaged over the whole town, but the monitoring stations, the areas where it was monitored was in Bloomgate, St Leonards, Bannatyne and Friars Lane. We were aware of the canyon effect in the town centre area of Lanark, and that was what particularly drew us to monitoring Lanark in the first instance, because we're aware that that sort of construction would potentially allow pollutants to gather within the local area and within that locality, and we wanted to take steps to try and prevent that. That was really done through the traffic management to keep the traffic flowing rather than traffic being parked and air pollution building up in those areas. In relation to the second question, in terms of if things slip back, what we would be looking to do in the first instance is carry out a review of our air quality strategy. And what we'd be looking at is making sure that air quality across the whole of South Lanarkshire, but particularly in areas where we've identified poorer air quality previously, the air quality in those areas are protected. It would be remiss of us not to be mindful of that, because there's no point in improving air quality in an area only to allow it to slip back. What we would do in those instances is look at what may be causing the pollution, and then we would then bid for funding to identify projects which could then help alleviate any poor air quality that was starting to develop. Hopefully that maybe answers your questions.
Okay, you happy with that, David?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think it's clearly absolutely vital we build on the progress made on these things, isn't it? Councillor Anderson. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Lockhart. Councillor Lockhart.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, I'm glad to see that people are keeping an eye on it, but I would like to follow up a bit further on the answers to David Shearer's questions, and I'm glad David asked them because I would as well. What I don't understand is the report seems to stop in 2019. We're dealing with 5-year-old figures almost now, and for the last more than 2 years, Lanark has been struggling with the disastrously extended works to the Royal Oak Hotel and the enforced closure of really a key road in Lanark. And because of COVID and all these delays, the traffic jams in Lanark are almost constant. And the High Street is just about as bad as the Wellgate, I would imagine, at certain times of the day with the traffic jams that are there. And frankly, I also not sure whether it makes any sense to have an average. As we all know, an average is useless because it doesn't reflect the top or the bottom. It's a median. And if it's an average over the whole town, there are large areas of Lanark where it really is not having much effect, if you like, on pollutants because they're not outside those two key areas. I would like to look at some more updated information. I think it's far too premature to revoke this AQMA because I'd like to know what the numbers are for the last 2 or 3 years. And I would also like to know some more detail on the level of the numbers in the Wellgate and the High Street, which I am told level with many parts of central London. And I don't think that's very clever to make any decisions based on this. So I would frankly be proposing to move that we do not consider revoking this scheme until we have more recent figures, at least up until 2022, and even figures which are reflecting what's happening in Lanark at this moment and may well continue to some months. So I personally think that we've got a long way to go before we consider revoking this AQMA. Thank you.
Craig, could you reply to that, please?
Certainly, Chair. In terms of the monitoring has continued. The report, what you're probably seeing is just a phasing element in terms of when the reports were done. But the monitoring stations are continuous monitoring stations, and we get information in all the time, and that's sort of reviewed. There currently are no issues in relation to the pollutants that are being measured at the monitoring stations within the Lanark area, and it was because of that we felt we were able to go to a detailed assessment and then submit that detailed assessment to Scottish Government and to SEPA, and both have agreed that it would be appropriate to revoke the local air quality management area. I'm quite happy to go and get the more up-to-date information and present it to the councillor or to bring it back to the committee if that's what the committee wished.
Am I right in understanding that SEPA effectively are the advisory organisation on this matter and that they in fact have to approve the thing as well from their professional standpoint?
Yes, that's correct. Look, SEPA, we wouldn't have come in before committee today if SEPA hadn't said to us that they're quite happy with the actions that we've taken to monitor the air quality in the Lanark area and also the findings that we've drawn, or the conclusions that we've drawn from the readings that have been received. That's why we go to SEPA and Scottish Government on an annual basis to let them know what we're doing.
Richard, I'm sure that Craig would be happy to meet with you further if you've got more technical issues to go through on this one. It's really quite important. There's an understanding, I think, by people on it. But it does seem we've got up-to-date monitoring figures which are confirming the direction of travel, if you like.
Yeah, I'd be happy to
come back on that at all?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. Okay, well, it was certainly useful to meet. I feel I'm slightly conscious that I'm the only councillor who, if you like, represents Lanark here today. And anecdotally, I would say that a very large number of people in Lanark, despite what SEPA and other surveys might say, feel that Lanark is pretty well a constant traffic jam They do not think that it is a particularly healthy place to bring children or other people, certainly during the busy periods in the rush hour. Now, this may well improve once the building is done, and there's endless talk of a gyratory system, which might also stop the traffic jams to some extent. But I really do feel, frankly, I'm delighted to talk to him, but I do feel that it is premature at this meeting to move any decisions further
Local
forward.
consultation, anyway. Yes, Okay, thank you very much for that. This will be followed, as I understand it, by local consultation anyway, will it not, on the basis of the proposal to revoke? So there'll be opportunities then to come back in on that one as well. You've got the SEPA thing as well in terms of the external provision on that sort of thing. So I think there are a number of safeguards in place that will hopefully give Richard some reassurance, not least obviously the possible meeting with Craig. Can I come to Councillor Anderson, please? John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, it's not directly about Lanark here, but on the 21st of September, the Executive, we got 347,000 additional funding from the Scottish Government to deal with clean air initiatives. I thought we were going to get a report on this to see how this money was best used. Has it been used, or is there a report coming to the committee, not for approval, but even for noting on this money that was given very generously by the Scottish Government?
Craig.
Okay. Councillor Anderson, I wasn't aware that there was a committee report expected on the funding. You're quite right, funding was allocated to South Lanarkshire Council. We have been lucky over a long number of years to be able to secure Scottish Government funding for air quality initiatives. And I think that's because we're recognised as being able to deliver and make good use of that money. I'm happy to provide a report. At the timing of it, it may well be appropriate to report in relation to the money that we're bidding for this year, and we can maybe update on the grant we receive and give an indication to committee works that have been carried out in previous years with the funding that we've received, if that would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's helpful, probably in the context of wider measures, perhaps, to some degree as well. Nobody else has wanted to speak. Just want to clarify with Richard that he wasn't, in fact, moving. He said he was considering moving. He wasn't, in fact, moving anything on this particular matter. I hope we've given enough reassurance to him on that. Richard?
Yes, Chair. Okay, no, I'll leave it be at the moment. I don't think we need to do that, but I would like to speak to Craig, obviously. But I do feel that there is enough space at the moment for us to complain, criticise, or comment. So I'll leave it at the moment.
Yeah, thank you very much for that one. Can I ask myself one further question, which is relating to the other action areas, not least that in Rutherglen, perhaps I might suggest. I think I'm right in saying that very generally, according to the reports I've seen on this from the UK and Scottish governments, broadly speaking across the country, we're making significant progress on the issue of particulates and of nitrogen dioxide as well. How are we doing on the other action area things here? Are we seeing the same sort of progress? Are we likely to see this sort of report coming back again for the other areas?
Chair, yes, I'm pleased to report that the air quality in both the Whirlies area of East Kilbride and in the Rutherglen area, we are seeing an improvement, and it's a sustained improvement over a number of years. We are continuing to carry out monitoring, and currently our main focus is in relation to PM 2.5. This is a new standard that was introduced. And again, similar to the Lanark Air Quality Management Area, we wouldn't want to move to revoking an air quality management area until we were satisfied that we wouldn't have to come back and redeclare for another pollutant. So we would rather to continue to monitor, and then once we're satisfied that all pollutants are at a level where they're unlikely to be exceedances in the future, we would then be looking to come back to this committee to ask for the revocation of East Kilbride and Rutherglen air quality management areas at an appropriate time.
Thank you very much. I think, as I said at the beginning, this seems to me to be basically a good news story. We're making considerable progress in this area, and quite rightly so. Can I therefore ask the committee if we're prepared to... can I move the report and ask the committee if they're prepared to agree the report? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, this is the zero carbon indoor multi-sports facility proposal at Straven Rugby Club, pages 41 to 46. Can I ask Alison Brown to speak to this report, please? Alison.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide committee with information on a planning application submitted by Straven Rugby Club to add an indoor training facility and to seek approval to grant £387,473 from the Straven Community Sports and Sports Facilities Fund towards this facility. Straven Rugby Club has submitted a planning application to provide this new indoor training facility. The construction cost is estimated up to £1 million. Straven Rugby are seeking funding from the Scottish Rugby Union and have identified other potential funding opportunities. Straven Rugby Club has also approached the Council to utilise the balance of funding from a Section 75 agreement between the Council and Mr and Mrs Patterson associated with a previous residential consent at East Overton. Straven Rugby Club believe that continuing their engagement with other clubs and groups in the area, they can become a community hub. Their membership is currently 546 and it's anticipated with this new facility it could increase by 10%. In addition, other clubs including Straven Dynamo, Straven Striders and the Netball Club will also utilise this facility. It's considered that this additional facility will deliver enhanced leisure and recreation benefits to the increased population of Straven, which has arisen as a direct result of the new housing development. It is proposed, however, that should any release of funding be approved, this will be subject to a legal agreement, including clawback obligations if the project does not adhere to the conditions. With that, I'd move to the recommendation in Section 2 to approve the release of funding totalling £387,473 and that the funds will be subject to a legal agreement which will be delegated to the Executive Director. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks very much, Alison. Again, I think an interesting and good news story in many respects. Can I ask questions? Councillor David Watson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I would echo your sentiment about the good news story. That I think this is an exciting, looks like an exciting opportunity for Straven and the surrounding area and the sports community within that, and taking it even wider. The rugby club, from what my knowledge of it, is a very progressive club and have been pushing forward developments in Straven along with the other clubs that are mentioned. There were the football clubs, Straven Dynamo and others. So on paper, yeah, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for that area and hopefully it can come to some fruition. I think the question I've got is under the recommendation too, that the funds shall not be released until there's a legal agreement between the council and the rugby club. What sort of timescale are we talking on that? And I know it might not always be just in our hands as a council, but is there an idea of timescale? And if there are going to be issues with it, can we maybe get some feedback to this committee that if there are going to be issues? But I think it's important that we get some sort of time frame on that to push it forward. I'm sure the rugby club would be keen to push it forward, etc. as well. So, yeah, cracking news story, good for sport and good for local community. Thanks.
You're not the lawyer, Alison, but can you give any comment on the timescales of this?
Thank you, Councillor. We need to understand the timing of the Scottish Rugby Union's funding. So we will be working very closely with Straven Rugby to put in place the paperwork and hopefully we can align with the other funding bids that will be coming through. We'll look to do it as seamlessly as possible and happy to liaise directly with you on the timing of that.
Yeah, is that likely to be 6 months or a year, or is it, have you any indication? Sorry to hang that, I'll not hold you by it, but just to give us an idea in my head, thanks.
Certainly hopeful within 6 months.
Thank you very much. Councillor John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm sure they would welcome this, they would welcome it in their own areas as well. Given that there is some things going through, legal and whatever, I do hope that we come to a good conclusion here. I think as well as the sporting people, it does give the residents the opportunity to access leisure and outdoor recreation activities, and that will help their well-being and quality of life, and also their mental health if we use it up. So yeah, we're fully in support of this, and we hope it does go through ASAP. Thank you.
I think as has been said, colleagues, I think this is really a recommendation with a whole lot of wider benefits, not least in the leisure facilities offered in Straven. And I think it's one we can hopefully approve with some degree of aplomb. Can I ask just one technical question, which is the status of the rugby club? What I had in mind was its own membership status. I mean, is it one of these members clubs where if it all went belly up, as it were, they divide the proceeds amongst the members, or is there a more satisfactory clause in it? And would that be one of the things that would be examined, if you like, in the legal agreement?
Yeah, that's certainly one of the clawbacks that we would be looking to capture within the legal agreement. Should it disband in any way, that the community still have that benefit.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Can I therefore move the report?
A second.
Thank you very much. And can the committee approve the report? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, which is the Ash Dieback Disease Programme Arboriculture Operatives Trainee, pages 47 to 50. Kevin Carter, speak to this report, please, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of today's report is to update the committee on a programme of work required on Ash Dieback disease following the allocation of capital funding, and to seek approval for 3 trainee arboriculture operatives to be added to the resources establishment for a fixed term of 12 months. Ash dieback disease is the most significant tree disease to affect broadleaf trees in the UK since Dutch elm disease in the 60s. It spread rapidly, and data from Europe suggests it will lead to the decline in death of between 50 and 75% of ash trees in Scotland over the next 2 decades. Cost estimates for dealing with the problem across the UK range from £2.5 billion to over £14 billion. To date, the Council's arboriculture team has participated in a number of national initiatives with key stakeholders such as the Forestry Commission, the Tree Council and the Scottish Government to develop policy and processes in the country's response to the ash dieback problem. The Council has also now included ash dieback in the Corporate Risk Register, as well as the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Strategy. A pilot investigation has been undertaken following allocation of funding over the last year, and this has identified an initial programme of work to further quantify the scale of the issue and respond to immediate concerns. The Council has allocated a further £500,000 in the 2023-24 capital programme, and this will be utilised to deliver that programme of work. This will require additional staffing resource, and given the challenges in the arboriculture sector, it is intended to establish 3 temporary trainee positions that will allow the team to reprofile their current workload and address succession planning concerns by growing their own. It is intended that the output of this work will allow further future bids for further capital funding, as we're able to quantify the issue more accurately in South Lanarkshire. Section 5 details the costs of the posts, with the remaining funding for vehicles, equipment, materials and other contractor costs. Happy to take any other questions, Chair.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Questions from Councillor Andrea Cowan, please. Andrea. Doesn't seem to be coming on. Can we leave Andrea for the moment and go to Councillor John Anderson?
Thanks, Chair. Just wondering, have we got any idea of the other costs associated with this ash dieback? The reason I was really asking was because a recent report reckoned that it could cost the UK over £5 billion, and some local councils run into tens of millions of pounds just to deal with this. Is there any idea of the cost to this council, apart from these 3 temporary jobs that we're having? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. We don't at this point. In the paper, you'll have seen there's 2 figures, 2 best estimates for the UK, and it varies between £2.5 billion and £14.5 billion. Unfortunately, the most recent one is the £14.5 billion, which is the piece of work that APSI have carried out. But because the local authorities across the UK are really at the start of this process, nobody's really clearly pinned down an accurate cost for each council area. So what this funding will allow us to do is to start that process. We got some funding last year which has allowed some pilot work, so we have an idea in some areas. And what this £500,000 allows us to do is start to quantify the scale of the issue in South Lanarkshire. So at this point, no, we don't have an accurate figure, but I would hope over the next year as we roll out this programme that we'll start to pin that down. But it won't be insignificant, I think, is the...
I think this is a major issue for all public authorities, indeed many private owners too. I first came across it when I went to a briefing by Network Rail. Imagine all the trees there are along the railway lines and things, and they were extremely worried about it and had very high cost estimates, you know, similar to Kevin's ones on that as well. So it's a big, big issue. One would like to think they could actually provide some sort of remedy that actually stopped the ash trees getting the disease in the first place, but I'm told that isn't on the horizon either. Can we try again with Andrea Cowan? Hi, Andrea.
Hello,
Success this
hi,
time.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, so I only heard a wee bit of John Anderson's question. I think he was talking about costs in general. Mine is a wee bit more specific. I'm not going to try and say, and I've written this down, I'm not going to try and say arboriculture too many times. I'm just going to use the word arborists. And I'm pleased that we're creating 3 trainee jobs. However, there's quite a lot involved, I believe, in being an arborist, in the fact that you have to be able to identify tree disease. There's also working at heights and obviously just the sort of pruning and cutting down of trees and all of that sort of thing. So my concern, I suppose, is that this is only a 12-month contract. And I don't, from what I've had a look at, when there are city and guilds courses, there are forestry courses, all sorts of things on this. So my concern is that we're going to take 3 folk on for 12 months, and if there's no funding next year, they're going to be left with a sort of half-done traineeship, if you like. And I just wondered if Kevin could maybe give me some background on what the job will incur. Thanks.
Yeah, that's an important question. Kevin?
Thanks, Councillor Cowan. You actually provided a pretty good summary of what's required for a trainee arborist, believe it or not. But
It'll be on my application.
Okay. You're good at climbing. No, it's the right question, because the nature of the capital funding, it is only for 1 year, while we build up a bigger case for bigger investment over the longer term. So the point of this is also to address some of the concerns that we've got in the current team about succession planning and the age profile of that small team. Okay. So they'll be working with very experienced arborists, and we'll be reprofiling the work. So the trainees won't just be working on ash dieback, they'll be working on their broader programme of tree management. So they'll learn all of those skills as well. And some of our workforce will be retiring over the next 12 to 24 months as well. So we don't anticipate losing any of the trainees at the end of the 12-month period, and we're hoping to build on it over the coming years as well.
How easy do you think it'll be to actually recruit somebody, Kevin, on this one? Because it's recruitment problems in a number of different areas, isn't there?
Thanks, Chair. Well, actually, from our seasonals that we let go over the winter period, we've kept in touch with some of our younger people as well that did a really good job for us last year. So we know there's a small group there who would be interested in these posts and who we'd be really keen to engage with as well.
That's good, thank you. Councillor Richard Lockhart.
I'm live now, I think. Yeah, thank you. I very much support what Andrea has said. I have plenty of experience of ash dieback and the problems of dealing with it. And I think that the point she makes is a very good one, because this is a long-term process and 3 people is hardly even going to look at it. I know what's involved. And one of the things that worries me is simply with only 3 people added to the force, there's going to be a huge mess left, because one of the problems is not just cutting them down, but it's dealing with them, clearing them up and all the rest of it. And that needs quite a solid labour force on a consistent basis. And I just wonder whether you're really actually dealing with the problem properly, or whether you're nibbling at it effectively, bearing in mind what's involved and the length of time for which this is going to have to run.
Well, it's a developing matter, isn't it, is the bottom line. Kevin?
Thanks, Chair. No, again, it's the right question. As the paper sets out, it's going to be a decades-long issue that we're dealing with, and we're really just at the starting point of this in terms of quantifying the scale of the issue and then trying to resource up over the medium term to deal with it. So The immediate concerns aren't going to be in the next year or two, but over the next 5 to 10, it will really become predominant, and that's when we'll need much more additional resource to deal with the issue.
Yeah, I think that's a stark warning, isn't it, going forward? Thank you very much indeed. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
And ask the committee to agree it, please. Thank you. Moving on to items for noting, or item to noting, which is the Community Enterprise Resource Plan Quarter 2, the Progress Report 22-23, pages 51 to 76. In this instance, Gillian Simpson to speak to the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. This report presents the Quarter 2 progress against the actions and measures within the Community Enterprise Resource Plan for 22-23. The report follows the standard corporate reporting template and includes the performance outcomes, some key achievements for the first half of the year, as well as some areas for improvement. So obviously the progress updates within the report are as at the end of September 2022, and so some of the actions may have moved further forward as we've progressed throughout the year, and some of the narratives within the appendix have been updated to reflect a more up-to-date position, but the status is as it was as at the end of September. Section 3 provides some background to the Council's performance management arrangements. Section 4 refers us to the resource outcomes for 22-23, and the main detail of the report is included within Section 5. The table at Section 5.2 shows the overall summary of progress at Quarter 2, with over 61% of the actions and measures being either completed or having met the required expectations at that particular point in time. 23% showed a minor shortfall against targets, that's the amber measures, and one measure was rated as red. A report on all of the red and amber measures across all the resource plans was taken to the Performance and Review Scrutiny Forum back in November. As we're only reporting halfway through the year, there are 3 measures that we're not yet able to report on at Quarter 2, and these will be reported at a later stage. An updated position for the 6 measures that were identified as report later, as at the end of Quarter 4 last year, is also included in Appendix 3. Section 5.3 identifies some of the key achievements for the resource during April to September, and Section 5.4 highlights the main area for improvement, and that relates to the percentage of household waste that was recycled. And if I can just refer back to the purpose of the report, which is for committee to note the performance against the 22-23 resource plan as at Quarter 2. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the report? I don't see any questions, so can we note the report?
Second it, Chair.
Thank you very much. Note the report. Item 10 is urgent business. There are no items of urgent business, so that brings the meeting to an end. Thank you very much for your attendance, colleagues. David Shearer's a bit stroppy.
What?
David Shearer was a bit stroppy.
I guess he just gets a chance to get in there.